Can you please tell me a little bit about yourself and in a few sentences describe what you're doing in PivotPoint Resolutions?
Yeah. So my name is Beth Carrier, and I am the owner and founder of PivotPoint Resolutions. I'm the lead mediator there. I focus primarily on divorce, and I help couples navigate a really tough chapter of their lives. And the reason that I do it is almost exactly 20 years ago, I went through a divorce, and my kids were very young. They were 6 and 4. And I had never heard of mediation. I didn't know that was even an option. I thought that if a couple decided they were getting divorced, that they each had to hire an attorney and go to court. And that was very scary to me. But luckily, mediation just sort of fell in our laps. And it was such a powerful experience for me, and I think for my ex-husband, that I really felt like I needed to spread the word to other people that there's another option. And it's an amicable option, and it helps preserve your co-parenting relationship. It's much better for your kids if you can stay amicable throughout, because like it or not, you're going to be connected to that person the rest of your lives if you have kids together. And so anyway, I decided that I wanted to start PivotPoint Resolutions and help couples get through it the same way that I did. So that's why I started.
Wow, such a powerful story. I really like how it sounds and the values behind it. What do you love the most about helping families go through this tough part of their life?
I think that, it's interesting because I meet the most lovely people, actually. And people ask me all the time, like, how can you possibly do this every day? Like, this is, you could not pay me enough to do this job. And it's funny because I really, it makes helping a couple, guiding a couple through this process and seeing the end result, which is them getting along and them being able to communicate and their kids being able to adjust to this new chapter better because of the way that their parents handled it. It helps me feel like I'm putting good out into the world. And I feel like the world needs more good a lot of times. And so for me, it's very powerful. And it kind of fills my bucket. It helps me feel like I'm making a difference.
Great. You have so nice mission in this world to make it better than it is.
Yeah.
And it's really so inspirational. For someone who's never heard what is the divorce mediation in plain language, can you describe what it is?
Yeah, absolutely. So divorce mediation, there's essentially two paths. If a couple decides that they're going to get divorced, there's really two paths. And one path is litigation. So that's where both parties would, retain attorneys and go through the motions. There'd be hearings and eventually trial, that kind of thing. And that's what we all see on TV and on the movies and everything. But there's another path that isn't as well known, and that is mediation. So what I do is I try to find the couples before they retain attorneys. And the reason why is because not everybody needs representation by an attorney. Some people do, and there is a place for that. There is 100% a place for litigation, and I'm glad it exists, and I'm glad attorneys exist, because mediation isn't for everybody. But the couples that do go through mediation and that choose to use mediation, it's essentially a process where I work with them as a neutral third party. So I don't represent either of them. I'm just there to facilitate the conversation and to help guide them through the decisions that they are going to have to make for a judge to sign off on the decree at the end, which is the ultimate objective is to finalize the divorce. And so in order to do that, a judge needs to see that the couple has made specific decisions together and has come to agreement on specific things. And most of my clients come in and they haven't been divorced before. This is the first time they've ever been divorced, so they don't know what they're supposed to decide on. And so I help guide them through that. And, I always say, that mediation is a more amicable process, but that doesn't mean, amicable to me doesn't mean that the couple agrees on everything, because they almost never do. There's always something that we get stuck, somewhere. And so part of my job is to make sure that we don't stay stuck. So if there's a bump in our conversation, then we work through that and they come to an agreement on whatever that decision is. And as they're coming to all those agreements, as we're working through all this, I'm collecting all of that information. And my deliverable at the end of our time together is called an MOU, which stands for Memorandum of Understanding. And it is basically a compilation of all of the agreements that the couple has come to. And it ultimately gets attached to the court forms, to the state forms, and filed with the court. And the judge reads through it and then eventually signs the decree. So that's how the process works.
Okay. And are there any combination when a couple works with you and with attorneys, or it is just you, or just mediator, or just attorney? So know the combinations of how this thing works. Yeah,
that's a really good question. So we can do it where the couple, where they're each represented by an attorney. That does happen. And there's also, what a lot of people don't know is that even when couples choose the path of litigation, so let's say that they did not come to mediation first, they each retained attorneys, now they're in the court system, they're going through the process, there's discovery and hearings and all that stuff. When they get to the pretrial hearing, almost always the judge will order them to try mediation, which is funny, right? So now, but what they don't always understand is now they're paying for the mediator and they're paying for their attorneys. And in some cases that is necessary. There are times when an individual, for whatever, the situation, every situation is different. And if their situation does call for legal representation for one or both of the parties, then that's the route that they should go. But that doesn't mean that they can't use mediation. Even very contentious and high conflict situations oftentimes settle in mediation. So, but I can work with couples even if they are retained by attorneys.
Okay, God, thank you. I also research market a little bit, and there are some attorneys who have specific services for mediation. So how the PivotPoint Resolution is different from this type of companies?
Yeah, that's really common now, and it's kind of confusing, I think, for people. There are attorneys that are litigators, that is their main job, but they also have decided to offer mediation services. And so while it's not a bad situation, sometimes that works for everybody, but one of the major differences is that attorneys are trained, like go through a lot of training to really learn the letter of the law. And even when they're wearing that mediator hat and acting as a mediator, they're still trained, their brain is still trained to kind of stay inside a box, inside the legal box. And that's not a bad thing, like I said, but with a mediator who is not an attorney, and I am a non-attorney mediator, we can get more creative and we can think outside that box. And the reason why is because as long as both parties as long as I'm hearing each party's voice and each party is collaborating on the agreement, so each person is playing a role in that agreement, as long as the couple agrees on whatever the decision is, the judge is most likely going to sign off. There are a few exceptions. Certain things are mandated by the state, like child support and things like that. So we can't really go outside the box too much on that. But other things like how you might split an asset or how you might split a debt. As an example, the state of Idaho is a community property state. So to the state, that means that everything is split 50-50. But in mediation, we don't have to split things 50-50. And sometimes there's a reason why it makes more sense not to split it 50-50. And if both parties agree, the judge is going to be fine with that. So we kind of get more creative. And the way that I look at mediation, when clients come into my office, I often say, it's not the two of you against each other. It's the three of us the three of us are a team, and our challenge is getting through all these decisions we have to make in order for the judge to sign that decree. So it's us against the decisions. That's it. So it kind of shifts the mindset, I think, from adversarial to collaborative.
Mm-hmm. Wow. I really like this approach. If we are talking about the situations, I know the situations can be different, and sometimes both in couples can be stressed or anxious or even aggressive. So can you walk us through, like from first consultation to the final memorandum signing, how you work with tough situations or stressful couples?
Yeah. And yes, every single situation is different. The dynamic of every couple is different. But the process is pretty much the same for the most part. We start with a free consultation. I offer free consultations. Oftentimes just one party will come to me first, alone, and I explain mediation. I show them the process. And then I say to them, let your spouse know that I'm also more than happy to do another free consultation with them, because for me, it's a lot better if both parties understand the process and both parties are on board with basically how it works. Some of the there are sort of rules of the game, and the biggest rules of the game are that both parties need to come to the table in good faith and with full transparency. If one party is not willing to do that, then mediation is not going to be a fit. But with most of the clients that come to me, they usually say something like, yes, we've decided to get divorced. They will each say, I want the other person to be okay. And they're each saying that about each other. And that's a great sign that mediation is going to be an excellent fit for them. So it's not about winning. Mediation is about coming to an agreement that both of you feel is fair and that you can both live with.
Compromise.
But as far as the process goes, we do the free consultation, and then I have both parties sign an agreement to mediate. In that agreement to mediate, it states kind of the rules of the game that I just talked about. You're coming in good faith. You're coming with full transparency. We're going to speak respectfully to each other when we're working together. Everything is confidential. So everything we talk about in mediation is confidential. It's very easy for all of us to want to leave, our sessions and talk to our best friend or talk to our mom or whatever. And we can't do that. So everything stays confidential, which creates a safe space for the three of us to collaborate and get creative and think of ideas. And I call it throw spaghetti at the wall. So throw spaghetti at the wall, see if this sticks. Like, what do you think about this? What if we did it this way? And we just keep doing that until we find something that both parties feel is fair. So once we do the agreement to mediate, we start our sessions. We generally meet once a week for 2 hours at a time. And that can either be in person in my Boise office in downtown, or it can be via Zoom. I do help couples nationwide. I've helped couples in other states. Sometimes they are residents from Idaho, but because of travel or whatever, one party is, far away and can't come into the office. So we can also do a hybrid. We just have that availability, which is nice. But we start our sessions. We meet once a week. And depending on the complexity of the particular situation, if the couple has children, minor children under the age of 18, then the process takes a little bit longer because we're going to be talking about child support and custody and parenting plans and holidays and all those things. And so that takes more time. If all of their children are grown and over the age of 18, or they don't have children, then the process generally takes a little bit less time. So we meet once a week until we get through all the material. And during that time, I'm compiling the MOU, the Memorandum of Understanding. And then the last step is that we have to have the state forms that have to be filled out. And the MOU is then attached to those forms, and everything is filed with the court. That's the one part of the process that the court will not let me do because I'm a neutral third party. So when we're working together, I'm not representing either party. I'm a neutral third party, and therefore I cannot file the paperwork for my clients. So I have lots of different ways, resources to help my clients with that last step. and they can choose, how they want to do that. And then we get it filed, and usually they never step foot in a courtroom.
Great. Okay. How many sessions in average you do for couples? So if we are talking about like both situations when they have kids or when they have grown kids or no kids at all?
Yeah, usually if there's no minor children involved, then it takes about 4 sessions to get through the material, because at that point we're splitting. It's really at that point about assets and debts and the division of all of those and how we're going to do that. And it takes about 4 sessions to do that. I reserve the last session, regardless of whether there are minor children involved or not. I reserve that last session to be just a review of the MOU, because at that point I've drafted it and I want to make sure that it's exactly how my clients want it before it gets filed with the court. So we do reserve that last session to do just the review of the MOU. But so without minor children, it's generally 4 sessions, and with minor children, it's usually 6 sessions. Sometimes I have more complex situations where the couple might have a business together, or they might own multiple houses or assets, and that can take longer to sift through. But if we get through that number of sessions and we still haven't finished, then we can always add on sessions at the end as necessary.
You have it as an option, correct? So for
Yep. So that's one thing too. When I went through my divorce 20 years ago, one of the big unknowns, here I was about to be a single mom with 2 little boys, and there was a huge unknown, which is how much is this going to cost? And when we were originally, trying to talk to attorneys to see how we wanted to do this, the attorneys were telling me, how much they charge per hour, but that meant nothing to me. How many hours does it take to get divorced? I don't know. I have no idea. So there was this like looming price tag that was terrifying to me. And so when I started PivotPoint, I wanted to make sure that I eliminated that worry for my clients. It's going through a divorce, even if you're amicable, is, it's really tough enough that I don't want to pile on to this already difficult time. So I made sure that I framed everything with flat fee pricing. So the way that I do it is there's different packages. There's 3 different packages based on the complexity of the situation. So like I said, without minor children, with minor children, and then kind of a more complex multiple homes or businesses that need to be assessed, that kind of thing. So that way my clients know exactly how much it's going to cost. There's no surprises. Generally that fee is split between the parties. And I also do offer payment plans that we can spread out over the course of the time we're working together.
I think it helps a lot. And I wanted to make a small notice that your customers, future customers, can check the pricing on your pricing page, because it's totally straightforward and transparent. So they can just check the pricing page to know all of the pricing directly without any consultation booking beforehand. Okay. You offer consultations in your office and also online. Can you, in a few words, just describe what is the difference and what's better for the couple?
Yeah. So the actual consultations, like the free consultations, I usually do online. But when we're meeting in sessions, we can either meet in person in my Boise office, or we can do it via Zoom, virtually from wherever my clients are. And really, they're both. I mean, we can accomplish the same thing both ways. If I had in a perfect world, all of my clients could come to me in person. I do think that there is there's a magic that happens when we're mediating in person, especially when you consider in a lot of these cases, if they have minor children, there's a lot of milestones that happen in our lives and situations where they are going to have to be together to support their child. So we've got, kindergarten graduation and high school graduation and college graduation and marriages and all these things. And so I think that being in the same room, if at all possible, kind of helps maybe soften that, and it's not as scary next time it has to happen. And for my clients, most of them, they want to maintain their co-parenting relationship. They want to get along, to whatever degree that's going to look like. And I want to do it, really, their driving factors for their children. And so I think in person is wonderful if we can do it. But if we can't, we have Zoom now. Technology is amazing. And so we can accomplish pretty much the same thing via Zoom, and I can help people wherever they are.
Great. Really inspirational. To wrap up our conversation, I have one more question to you. And for a couple who's decided to divorce, but is really scared to take the first step or to even trying to find some solution there, what would you say to them?
It is scary going through a divorce. Deciding that divorce is probably going to be better for both of you ultimately is a scary decision to make. It's very hard. And I think that almost like with anything, gathering as much information as you possibly can before making a decision and before taking that first step is what I would strongly recommend. So to me, that would mean, going and having a consultation with an attorney, talking about what it would look like to litigate. And then also signing up for a free consultation with me. I would be happy to tell you about mediation and just see if it will fit your family. See if you feel like it would be the best path for your family. And sometimes it's not. And sometimes, litigation is a better path for a couple, depending on the situation. If there are things like domestic violence or, there's so many different things. If one party is not going to be transparent financially, then that gets tricky too. But so often, mediation is an excellent solution for so many families, and it can make this next chapter so much more peaceful and healthy, I think, for everybody, including the kids. So so just book a free consultation. I would love to tell you about it and see if it's a good fit.
Great. Thank you, Beth. Thank you for your transparency and for answering all of these questions. I hope it will be useful for people who need this information to hear this information. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for listening.